All right, hello, hi everyone. I'm not dead. sorry. But yeah, let's not get into the BS that is my life right now. We are going to be talking about Art Fight. Yay, yippee, yippee. Listen, I love doing art fight stuff. The problem is, I'm not as well organized or articulate as some other people because I have seen some other artists here explain the concept of art fight so much better than I am. I realistically am just a little guy. I'm just a little guy that thinks the concept of people attacking each other with art to get points and it's something to look forward to in the summer is just fun. I think it's a fun little challenge. I think it's the NaNoWriMo of the art world, and it's meant to be fun. Reiterate with fun. With that being said, I, like many other people, I'm sure have been very overwhelmed when it comes to trying to make reference sheets. Because when we have our characters, our comfort characters, or even just like AUs of stuff we like, we're very particular about certain things and how they look. You know, there are some people, like myself, for example, I usually am okay with like vague changes of details. I just want to make sure I can still see my character. But if there are very important things that I want to get well known, I try to show it in my art. I try to show it in my references so that way we don't get that kind of mistake. Like a good example is something that I like doing and that is done on my character Mono here is I am a sucker. I blame my old furry days for this. I shouldn't say old. I'm still a furry. But anyway, I mean, when I was younger, when the internet was still very chaotic and still very unpure, but it seemed to be a weirdly a more innocent time than it is now. But we're not gonna get into that. We're not gonna go into that kind of tangent right now. But I always loved candy gore stuff. I don't know what it is. Something about it scratches the horror part of my brain when I see characters with colored biddies. When I see like there's candy gore and they have like neon green intestines and stuff like that, and it's always just been fun. And it brings me back to a little bit of my old anatomy days back when I took anatomy courses. God, forever ago now. But it's just really fascinating things like that. So, like, with my character Mono here, just like my mascot Cleo, I wanted it to be a thing where, like, hey, their insides match the color of their outsides. So, while I didn't actually have a reference of Mono's mouth open here, which I really should have, I'm gonna make that difference in my Chromie picture. I have different pictures of Mono with his mouth open. I'll probably slap those in the art fight section, but I was also trying to find a way to condense a reference sheet because, as you can see here, I also don't care about outfits on my characters. I love my characters being seen in different outfits, and I love seeing what people come up with because some people can come up with really creative stuff that I haven't even thought about before. And so, with that, that's why I was like, all right, I'm gonna have the front view be just a basic mirror, and then I'm gonna have a chibi with an outfit on it, and then I'm a bust with a different outfit on it. So that way, also, it unconsciously tells whoever's looking at it, like, oh, I can put this in different outfits. It's not gonna matter, right? It's a very helpful hint. And then another one is I really thought about it, and like character turnarounds are great. I love character turnarounds. I love looking at them. I love making them. It's so much fun. Same with height sheets. I don't know. The older I get and the more I've learned about proper art and anatomy and stuff like that, I just have a much bigger appreciation for the little things. Like, you know, when I see people do AUs to characters and they have like a whole little characters, like a show lineup kind of thing. Those are always really fun. But I wanted to try to get as much as I could condensed into one thing. And a problem that I kept coming up with was a lot of my characters don't have detailed back views, and unless I'm really animating it, you don't really need a back view for certain things if things aren't important. If a character's hairstyle isn't a certain way, if a character's like maybe they have tattoos and they have back tattoo that you want to have just in case you ever get art of that and stuff like that, you know. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna cut back views because unless the character has an important back view, I don't think it's an important, or unless there's an important detail to said outfit as well. So I wanted to change that. Something else that I did that I think I talked about in a previous video was the little mood board section that I've been putting on reference sheets because I don't know what it is. Just something about it tickles my brain meat. And I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure there's an actual, like, scientific articulated reason for why the human eye is that way and why we like things like that. Same thing with learning composition and golden ratio and all those fun art buzzwords. It helps you be able to picture everything going back together. I remember being like, I was working on I think I'll actually post a picture of the whip on screen just so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So I was working on Chromie's reference sheet, and I wanted to give Mono just as detailed of a reference sheet. But then I was like, I'm losing steam with this. I really am only doing this as a hobby thing because, art is my job. So I stream merch, I stream commissions, I do things like that. And so when I draw stuff for myself personally, I'm like, why am I not giving myself more like cheat sheets? Why am I not giving myself more like wiggle room with things? I'm the only one it really matters about. And I think that's a whole other thing, and that could be a whole topic I could do more research into. This one's a much more raw, rambly art video because I haven't done a video in a hot second. Kept saying I would. I've been sitting on footage, and I just need to sit down and do it. Like, you guys see this in every video. I'm sorry. It was so funny because I was originally going to make a video talking about how I couldn't articulate my feelings on just the state of things right now. And I've really been thinking about also just, I've gotten older. I've been thinking more about my brand. I've been thinking more about my art. I've been thinking more about the state of the world and the economy. Not great. And I started, bunkering down. And now that my frontal lobe is fully developed, being like, I made a lot of mistakes in my early 20s and my early start to doing this. Because I've been doing this for, God, about 10 years now that I think about it. Because it was right around 2014, 2015 that I went full time. Like, mostly full time. And I made a lot of mistakes and I made a lot of strides and I've learned a lot from them. So I don't like to say I wasted my 20s. I like to say I learned from my 20s. Not my original verbiage. I heard it in a video once and I was like, oh, that perfectly, that encapsulates what I wanted to say, what I was trying to get at, what was on my mind that I couldn't gather into my ADHD riddled brain, and I really sat there and I started looking and I started researching and then hey, when the universe needed them most, they came back. Like Drawing with Waffles came back to YouTube, and while not being consistent, I'm not surprised. Again, the state of the platform is not what it used to be back in I say the quote unquote good old days of 2015, 2016, but we know there were good and bad to everything. But the internet just being a different place, algorithms actually algorithming the way they were intended before they got big and popular. That's a whole tangent for another day. So I've been thinking about Art Fight, and I've been thinking about other things because the con scene has also been very, very crazy. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but the convention scene going on right now is, I complained about it previously, but it's getting worse. And then, like I said, the state of the economy is getting worse. So I've been seeing more and more people trying to stride and move more towards digital media again. I'm realistically thinking about revamping. I still have my shop. It is currently closed at the time of me saying this because I need to do stock and inventory. It's been a rough year. It's been a rough 6 months of 2025. And so that's why I was like, you know what? I've got all this going on, but I want to have fun. I want to do something for me. It's been a while since I felt inspired and things like that to do that because I was just in a bad spot. Art is about expression, and even when some people are like, oh, you're telling me that someone was going through something emotionally when they made this like cute pastel uwu Charmander, yeah, you don't know. That could have been someone's escapism. I have a friend personally that whenever they do vent art, it's not vent art. Like, whenever I have seen them do quote-unquote vent art, it's not what most people think vent art is. It wasn't drawing a character, screaming, being mad, or trying to depict a physicality to, chronic illness. I've done that from time to time. No, this friend of mine makes beautiful, gorgeous, colored pieces when they're upset because they're upset. That's how they process their feelings in their art, because art is supposed to be subjective, and it's also supposed to be, invoking something, even if it's something as simple as, oh, that looks cool, or oh, that's cute, and oh, it gives me like a warm little gooey feeling inside. That is still giving you some sort of emotion, right? And so with character sheets, something that I wish I had done so much sooner was be taught the right way to make reference sheets. The proper way to study, to learn form. And there is the popo. Okay, are they gone? Are they gone? I think they're gone. Anyway, don't you love living in a city and you have your windows open? Anyway, one big thing that everybody always says you need to have in your art is you need to be able to show a character's personality and a character's like body expression, right? It's something that's like always told and never taught. People aren't taught to look for proper poses. They aren't taught to teach the form. So, because of my neurodivergency, I take things very literally. Like, trust me, you guys do not want to know what it was like when I learned a thing about the eye doctor recently where they were like, oh, yeah, when your doctor says if you can see it or not, it's not if you physically can see it, it's if it's clear. So I have been having a wrong prescription for over 30 years of my life because I always thought, well, it's got to be until it's so blurry I can't make it out, right? Not that, oh, here's where you can see until things get blurry. And I'm like, oh my God. No one told me. They were always just like, hey, let us know when you see clearly. So took it literally. Same thing with character references. I couldn't find, like, I had ideas in my head. I couldn't visualize it. Like, I'd know how my character would be in my head, and I didn't know how to draw it. And I would try to look up poses, and I wouldn't know how to look up poses, and I would try to look up expressions, and I wouldn't know how to do that. So what would I do? I would literally, when I was younger, I would just look up bases. I'd be like, full body base, full body reference. I would see what my friends were doing. I would see what other people were doing, and I would just copy those poses because I didn't know what to do. And then I think back on it, and I'm like, yeah, I put characters in poses that they realistically wouldn't be in, but I was like, the anatomy was good, so I'll just slap my character details on that. It's also why I had such a hard time even making character references back in the day. Like, a long time ago, I had this really old YouTube series called My Marked Mage Bios, where I, like, went through once a month and I, did a character reference thing. Realistically now, I would just draw, because there was only 7 of them, I would just draw all 7 of them now, record it at the same time, get it done in the same time, get it in the lineup, and then I would, like, set it to go. There we go, there's 7 months of videos. That's something I would do now, compared to what I would do then. And then that way the artwork's all done, and so that way I'd be able to post it more and be able to do things like that. This is what I was talking about, like, doing better research into things and how just the internet and things go in the world now. But that has nothing to do with Art Fight, doesn't it? But it does. It does. I swear, this is coming back around. I did come back around. I found a way to come back around. Doesn't always happen, but sometimes it does. I remember seeing so many people who were like, I hate getting mass attacks. Oh, I hate getting this and this. Oh my God, this person didn't do my character in the right pose. And then I look at the reference sheet and I'm like, okay, but this is just a basic, like, especially in the T-posing stance. Like, don't get me wrong, I do it as well. I'm not making fun of other people for using the mirror tool. I've had some people even complain I use the mirror tool a little too much. And for those people, I say, it's a tool, and I'm utilizing it. If you don't like it, feel free to go ahead. When you have that, that's when you need to have the expressions and the outfits show the most detail. Because it's a basic T-pose. The same thing with, like, 3D modeling. Yeah, you're just standing there in the T-pose, but you gotta make sure that, oh, here's how it would hang on the body. Oh, here's what the character would, do. A really good creator I would recommend following for, like, OC content and stuff is the Starfish Face. She has, like, a whole series of, like, having people, like, fall in love with your characters and learning about your characters and what makes, like, writing and world building 101. And what's so funny is, like, when I was younger, I had these huge delusions of grandeur of being like, oh yeah, I'm going to make books of all of these, and I'm going to make web comics of all of these. And I do eventually want to make a web comic, and I do want to have my books published. It's also very much a hobby for me. That is not something where I make my money from. And like I said earlier, I'm an adult. Assuming you listening is an adult or almost an adult. Sometimes it's good just to have hobbies be hobbies. That's not me downplaying other artists and other webcomic artists and stuff like that out there. Same thing goes for other YouTubers. There are some people out there that are going out there and making their own pilot show. I think that's awesome. I think that's great. And after thinking about it and getting more into literature and expanding my mind, sometimes I just need a self-indulgent little guy. And that's what it's been for me recently with, like, my Cyclopses and, like, Mono and Chromie is I'm sitting here like I have a basic idea of what I want for their story to be, and I'd love to draw them in silly little memes and things like that. But then I sit here and I'm like, yeah, and those are fun little things to do on the side. I don't need to do that. I don't need to make it this big grandeur thing. And I think that's another thing for myself is I used to have, like with my marked mages and some of my other characters, I used to have these big, complex, elaborate stories that were just taking up all my time and all my energy, and I loved it and it was great. I also had a lot less responsibilities back then. I also had a lot less stuff. And it's a lot more intimidating now for me to be like, okay, it's my only day off and I have to do what everybody else does once you're an adult. You know, it's like, all right, I got to make sure my laundry's done, house is clean, ate well, took care of my cats, made sure, banking stuff's done, make sure this and that, check emails, do this, yada yada. It's this whole thing. And then I sit here and I'm like, what do I want to do? Do I want to like sit down and work on this super deep, complex thing? Nah, I'd kind of rather uh, find a random silly meme that I liked, redraw that as like a little warm up, and then play some games with friends. It's a good thing to have this hobby, which is what Art Fight was originally. A lot of people take it way too seriously, and this is the thing I say every year. And for me, I'm just like, I'm just gonna get done what I can get done. Like, I love doing Art Fight. I think it's great. I think it's fun. I love getting to meet new people. I love getting to see the fan art. I love attacking like smaller and younger artists that like don't get a lot of attacks because a lot of people do attack the big creators because they know about them. Goes back to networking, and it's like owning a shop. It's like, oh yeah, a shop with over 100,000 followers on an account is probably gonna make more sales than a shop that only has 5,000 on an account. Vice versa. Oh, here's this really big content creator that only does one or two cons a year, and then they talk about how their shows are banging. It's like, yeah, you're a really big presence, so you have the networking out there, and then more people know about you. When they recognize you, they see your stuff, and then they're more likely to buy from you. That doesn't mean that your stuff is any less than the other person's stuff, but there are some amazing con artists that I've talked about before that have no presence online. Like, it's crazy to me that there's some people that I talk to that make just mountains of cash off their art, and their art is great and they do all this work. And then I look at their social media and they don't even have 1K followers, and I'm just like, wow, it really is a whole different world out there. And that's when I also get into seeing things of people being like, oh, I don't have any characters. And I'm like, that seems like an odd concept to me. But then I remember that in fandom, a lot of people, a lot of people take the character they are attached to and they pretty much make that their little meow meow. That's also not a problem. It's just one of those things where I'm like, all right, how can I get across everything I was talking about here and just being self-indulgent and silly in a character reference? And I think I did it. I think I did a good job here. I got the vibes that I wanted. I got the different colors. I was able to have him have his warm tone, mid tone, and dark warm tone, cool tone, and mid tone for the color palettes to show that like his skin also changes depending on the color you pick. You know, very fair and very readable. And I actually got the inspiration for this format from a VGen artist. I'll try my best to find it and put it on screen, because I think they were doing it for like selling an adoptable, which yes, adoptables are still very much a thing. I don't know why people are still mad about that, but I saw that concept and I'm like, that is a great way to get a character across. What if I can do that myself? And so that's what I started doing here. And that's something I also started offering on VGen, was like reference sheet commissions, where you can have the ones I've done before where like, here's a front view, here's a back view, here's maybe some chibis and some other little details that you can have to it. So you can have a nice complex one, or you can have a pretty simple one. Realistically, I can finish in about a day, which is also something I really like, is I want to be able to get things done quickly and efficiently, work smarter, not harder. So that way, when Art Fight does come around, because a lot of people don't realize this, while you can't post attacks before Art Fight, you can definitely mess around with your characters. You can upload more characters, you can update reference sheets, you can do that at any time. So that way, when it comes time for Art Fight, because like as of me making this right now, they haven't even released the teams, and it comes out next month. So, it is what it is. But yeah, there's my little ramble, talk, rant, conversation. About my character reference sheet. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys are doing Art Fight, please comment down below to feed the bot, but also what you think the theme will be. Like, what do you think the themes are going to be? What's it going to be versus this year? Because I have a theory, but I want to see if anybody else is kind of close to it, because I don't think we're going to go back to previous themes. I think we're going to stick with new themes. So, yeah. With that being said, I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.